Well, the Fantastic Four are already making their way around the world, reaping the benefits whipped up from advertising and promotion. But what about the plot, the content, and is it even worth watching? Your humble servant, that is me, dashed quickly like a boar early in the morning before the heat, watched the movie, and as a proper Marvel enthusiast and finally an influencer, I simply must share my opinion. But don't forget, my narrative might be a bit disjointed as this is not really my main path and there might even be spoilers, but they will start at the script moment. Most likely there will even be a huge warning before them, and you accordingly share your opinion, whether here in the comments or in the Telegram channel. The main thing is communication. After all, if you're creating content and no one hates it, it means you're doing something wrong.
Well, I remind you that this is Max at the microphone. This is the Magica Geeks channel.
Oh hell, as official. Let's get started. I think it's worth beginning, as everyone does, with their expectations. Then a few dry numbers, then opinions, and so on. In general, a carousel that will throw you left and right. Honestly, I didn't have many expectations. I just prayed that it wouldn't be too bad. Did my expectations come true? Basically, yes. Everything was really not bad. Yes, there were moments that raised questions for me. There were moments when I asked, why did they do that? And of course, the final scenes, but we will analyze all of that. I want to say right away that I will not defend the film, as many will, but I also will not try to instill the idea that it is bad. I will just try to express my opinion. If you agree, I will be pleased. If not, I will also be pleased to chat with you in the comments. I'm leading to the point that in recent years, many fans have started to become disappointed with Marvel and with the industry of this genre in general, and are leaving. I completely understand the fans, but I try to understand the studios and even kind of understand their actions. Do I agree with them? Not always, but I understand. Marvel, DC, get in touch with me. A vivid example was my videos where I was upset about Robert Downey's return, also upset about Deadpool. If you want, you can scroll through, maybe my opinion will resonate with you. So that was about my expectations and accordingly your expectations for this video. Therefore, if you like it, don't forget to like and subscribe. No, is a Well, let's briefly go over the statistics. This is already the 37th film in the franchise and the third Marvel release in 2025. It is expected to gross between $100 and $110 million in the US alone during the opening weekend and up to $210 million worldwide, just so you know. Expectations and risks are indeed high, especially after Captain America from Brave New World and Thunderbolt failed to maintain the standard. Both films started decently but ended up in the red, despite each grossing $400 million, and that's already a warning sign. And there's a nuance here. The budget for the new Fantastic Four is over $200 million, which is a serious challenge in itself. To avoid repeating the fate of previous failures, the film needs not only box office success but also genuine audience love, because now a simple Marvel logo is no longer enough to fill theaters. And now let's delve into a bit of history. The Fantastic Four has a strained relationship with adaptations, to put it mildly. The 2005 version made $330 million at the box office, the Silver Surfer sequel made $301 million, the 2015 reboot made $167 million, and an endless stream of memes. So yes, the new film needs not just to succeed, but to become the best version of itself. At the time of recording this video, Fantastic Four is competing with the new Superman from DC, by the way, which has confidently remained at the top for the third weekend in a row. But it's the only major release of the weekend and Marvel has every chance to seize the lead. The question is, how long can it hold the position? Marvel urgently needs a victory. After a couple of years of ups and downs, the first steps will either become that very turn in the right direction or another check mark in the list of failures. Will the studio meet expectations, or are we in for another beautiful but empty wrapper? Time will tell. And now a little about the plot. No spoilers, I promise. I applied a 5-step structure to this film, which can generally be applied to any film. It is exposition, inciting incident, climax, resolution, finale. If I made a mistake in the structure or explained it incorrectly, correct me in the comments. I'm all for it, but it was easier for me to apply all this to the film. Let me try to explain how it works using examples from the trailers to avoid major spoilers. This time, Marvel skipped the third adaptation of the moment when the Fantastic Four gained their superpowers. Here, it's mentioned briefly at the very beginning. Instead, we are immediately immersed in their everyday superhero routine. Yes, the four already have their abilities, they are already a team, and the exposition is built through their everyday life. Who they are, what they do, how they interact with each other and the world. Then we are introduced to the Silver Surfer, who informs that Galactus is heading to Earth. Just in case, Galactus is a devourer of worlds and the Surfer is a kind of scout, selecting planets for destruction. He is essentially like a messenger, but not with good news. Naturally, the Fantastics start doing something, using their brains, so to speak. Their path leads to the first contact with Galactus, who offers Earth a deal, but the price is too high, at least for the four. They refuse. Humanity as a whole doesn't really understand this refusal, and an internal conflict begins between the characters. This is our setup, if anything, the classic second stage of the structure. The heroes face difficulties, make a moral choice, and the conflict becomes personal. Then the climax, Sue delivers a fiery speech, which unexpectedly works. People unite, and active preparation for the planet's defense begins. Then comes the falling action of the resolution, the battle with Galactus, where, as usual, everything is on the edge, everything is epic, everyone is shouting. But I won't spoil the ending now, to leave you with a bit of intrigue. And it seems everything is clear, just like in the textbook. The structure is built: exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, conclusion. But a bunch of questions arise. Okay, bear with me a little longer, I'll get back to them. In the meantime, let me tell you about the actors and their performances, because there is a lot to discuss. We have formed a family circle of four characters, namely Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm, Ebon Moss as Ben Grimm, and Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. Let's analyze each one individually, and then as a tandem. Adrian Pascal performed at a high level. I won't sing his praises and say he's brilliant, but he did his job well. As for me, and mind you, I just recently finished the script for Reed Richards' Iceberg. He played an alternative version of Reed tightly and qualitatively, conveyed the character traits, habits, and most importantly, I didn't see Joel from The Last of Us in him, didn't recognize the villain from Kingsman, didn't recognize Maxwell Lord from Wonder Woman, for which he deserves respect because it's a big problem for actors to get stuck in one role. He did a good job, no doubt. With Vanessa, it's more complicated. I can't say exactly what the problem is, whether it's the script, the actress's performance, or something with me, but it feels like she turned out too hysterical and overconfident. I don't rule out that it might be due to the actress's own pregnancy. She is actually pregnant right now. Could it have somehow affected it, or was it intended by the script writers, or did the directors instruct to play it that way, or maybe pregnant women really behave like that? How would I know? I didn't just not touch women, I didn't even see them. I was sent to the Marvel and DC monastery as a child, and that's how I live now. But seriously, Sue in the comics was always softer, tried to smooth over sharp moments, avoid conflicts, and was even a bit insecure. Well, at least in the early comics, before Melissa, before the clones, before the doppelgangers. And here, it's the fourth year as a superhero, and already so much confidence and self-importance, as if she had been leading S.H.I.E.L.D. her whole life. So, next we have Ebon in the person of Ben, the very anchor. He, as always, remains calm, but it's clear he feels useless. His strength is in his fists, but on a cosmic scale, that doesn't help much. Nevertheless, he remains the voice of reason, the one who supports Joe Johnny, who prevents Reed from falling into paranoia, and who keeps Sue from breaking down. He's like the older brother of the whole team, unnoticed but indispensable. No questions about him at all. CGI is top-notch, expressions are readable, he performed honestly, earned every cent.
Joseph Quinn is something in between. He kind of plays the role of a simpleton joker.
Then, through always the use of a somewhat sluggish exposition, he decides to sacrifice himself. Again, without spoilers, but in the finale he shows almost no emotions, as if he doesn't care at all. It's confusing, and yes, there's a controversial take, but I'll say it, as if a more handsome boy was needed for the role of the Human Torch. I'm not saying that Quinn is ugly or anything, but compared to Chris Evans of that time, he definitely loses in charisma. Although perhaps it is also due to the fact that the image of Captain America is so ingrained in the consciousness, and it is simply difficult for Evans to compete in terms of memories. Now, speaking of tandems and the overall level of humor, I warn you right away. Don't expect anything in the spirit of Deadpool and Thunderbolts here. The focus is on family, and at most you can expect light jokes like hints at Johnny's crush on someone. Most of the interaction, of course, is between Ben and Johnny. They joke around sweetly, act like old friends, and dote on Franklin. Reed and Sue are a typical couple during pregnancy, but within the film, everything is fine. However, other combinations, Reed and Johnny, Sue and Ben, I didn't really see much chemistry.
Well, at most, Sue can scare Ben and scold Johnny, but it all just feels like background noise.
Overall, as a family film rated PG-13, as the first part of the story, everything is more or less tolerable and understandable, without excitement but also without cringe. I also want to note Galactus in the person of Ralph Eason. From his first appearance on screen, I was impressed by his power, strength, and absolute calmness. However, there are some plot questions about him, but more on that later. I would also like to note the Silver Surfer portrayed by Julia Garner. Perhaps I might be wrong, but her character seemed a bit frightening, cold, and generally off-putting to me. And maybe that was the intention, but her story at least is understandable to me, and I felt her emotions too. Now let's talk about the plot and script. This is where the main problems begin.
I think we can already talk with spoilers, otherwise you simply won't understand the essence of the complaints. So spoiler alert, if you don't want to know the details, here's a time code, skip to the next section. Let me clarify right away. I understand that creating from scratch and adapting something that already exists are two different tasks, but when they start changing key moments of the canon, it creates the impression that the screenwriters themselves don't seem to believe in the original material. For example, the battle with Galactus. In the classic canon, Johnny flies to Galactus' ship and brings the ultimate nullifier, a powerful weapon capable of destroying a deity. And here Sue, all by herself. The girl, all poor thing, pushed a powerful ancient titan, almost a god, into a portal. And this is just the beginning of her heroic career. Their powers are only developing. How is this even possible? Well, the multiverse covers all the holes, but even if you abstract from that, the plot raises the main question: what was the point of all this? As a viewer familiar with the Fantastic Four story, I asked myself, what was the purpose of it all if, in the end, the heroes returned to the starting point? That is, if you don't consider Galactus, if you don't consider all these events, they still remain on Earth. Franklin's abilities would have manifested anyway. Doom would have appeared anyway. Well, they just know that now there is Doom. They just now know that somewhere out there, at the edges of the universe, there is their new enemy. As they were loved at the beginning of the film, they are loved at the end of the film. The strong relationships they had at the beginning of the film remained the same at the end. What is the point? But to be honest, I've only watched the movie once so far, and I plan to go at least one more time, and maybe, if you like this video and want more detailed information, I'll release a second video. And right now, I'm just sharing my emotions from the first impression. And honestly, it feels like the whole movie was needed just for Franklin, who, by the way, is the son of Sue and Reed, to show how special he is and what role he will play in future projects. And the quartet were just extras. Now the script, Reed decides to teleport the Earth far away from Galactus. One moment, but how does he find a suitable place? I understand he supposedly has advanced technology of that time, but it's a planet. He is going to move an entire planet with an ecosystem. The slightest change, the slightest inaccuracy, the slightest mismatch, and everything will go extinct in a matter of seconds or years. Yes, you could say it was a last desperate attempt. He didn't know everything about Galactus and just took a risk, but Reed is a scientist. Did he calculate everything perfectly blindly? Alright, the motivation of Galactus himself. Why did he fall for such a stupid bait? Why didn't he send the Surfer? Didn't trust her anymore? Why was he approaching Earth so slowly? Did he want to play around, take a coffee break? It's completely unclear. Alright, yes. Supposedly, the Surfer got stuck in the wormhole for a month. But Galactus, when she returned to him, could have immediately teleported to Earth and that's it. No one would have had time to do anything. Now about Sue's legendary speech. Her logic is, yes, I choose the child, but I stay here and will fight. But if anything, I have a ship for 4 people, and if anything, guys, nothing personal. Attori, apparing. And the whole world was like, oh well, the mother said it, the mother knows. And they dispersed. Let me remind you, Galactus offered not to destroy Earth if they gave him Franklin. The 4 refused, but for some reason told the whole world about it. Why? No, now they could have said, Natokan, the enemy is too strong, we barely escaped, now we need to prepare for defense. But instead, he says what he says. People are like, nah. So what? When are we giving him the child? And the 4 are like, Nata, no, we refuse. What were they expecting? Naturally, the people rebelled and went to the Baxter building. Sue comes out with the child, delivers a monologue, and that's it. Everyone forgives her. Even the heads of state are like, well, she's a mother, she knows best. What? In reality, all governments would have already pooled resources and handed over Franklin with a flag for the sake of saving humanity. But here, no. We'd rather teleport the planet. Brilliant. And then there's the Silver Surfer, who suddenly sees the light. How many planets had she already given to Galactus before? Did she only feel ashamed after recording it? And another relevant question. How did a heavily pregnant woman fly through space? Reed, seriously? Traveling at cosmic speeds with a belly? Giving birth in zero gravity? Apparently, this is the new trend. I recommend it. I recommend it. It's worth noting that there were Easter eggs for classic villains. They even showed Mole Man. In the first case, it was just fan service for the experts, and in the second, Mole Man was even given screen time. Moreover, he wasn't even acting as a villain, but sheltered citizens underground. A big thumbs up for a couple of jokes aimed at Reed and Johnny. But why was he needed in the film?
It's unclear. They could have just evacuated the city and that's it. And finally, the scene of Sue's death. Come on, what reaction were you expecting?
We know who Sue is and what comics are. We've already seen the cast for Doomsday. Did you really think we would fall for the death of one of the main characters?
What about the child without a mother? We don't believe it, Marvel. We don't believe it.
And a few little questions like the visualization of Johnny's flame and why doesn't his clothing burn? Well, regular clothing. Well, here you could insert a placeholder like surely Reed prepared special materials for him, non-flammable even at high temperatures. And the same goes for Reed's stretchable clothing, regular clothing and invisible things, Sue, regular things in theory. These are either goofs or well thought out solutions that just stayed off screen. Although, by the way, in the first Fantastic Four, Kier Gige, with Jessica Alba and Chris Evans, such issues were raised and resolved. Like, by the way, for these scenes. Now let's move on to the graphics. Surprisingly, the graphics and CGI in the film turned out to be pleasant. The visual style is retrofuturistic, a fantastic city that resembles the 60s, but in the spirit of Fallout, though without the nuclear catastrophe. The atmosphere works great. Buildings, technology, lighting, everything fits. The stylization and editing effects also deserve praise. There is a feeling that the artists and editors did their best. The shots are not overloaded, the visual solutions are restrained but effective. I must mention Galactus' ship, stylish, grand, memorable, and there was also Hyorbe, the local assistant, a boss with a sense of humor. I really liked him both in terms of character and design, a kind of jokester droid with a smooth over awkwardness function. A good addition to the overall dynamic. Now about the soundtrack. Memorable, like in the case of Miles Morales? No, but it's still quality recognizable Marvel music that fits perfectly into the necessary scenes, especially in the exposition. The music really builds up, intensifies the tension, makes the moments more powerful. Honestly, I got goosebumps, and that's largely thanks to the audio. And what is the film about? What is its message, you might ask me? I think it all comes down to one phrase by the Silver Surfer, said to Johnny Woodiak, "Je ne rejoice and die as a family." That's the idea of the whole film. Family as a means of control, as the last hope, as a unifying force. This is especially evident in scenes where the whole world comes together to build teleporters, save electricity and save Earth. In real life, it's hard to believe that humanity is capable of this, but in the film, they show us, yes, we can argue, be different, but in a critical moment, we will unite like a family. This idea is also revealed in each of the characters, in Sue, in Reed, in Johnny, in Ben, and even in the Surfer, especially in the relationship between Johnny and the Surfer. For example, the Surfer saw in Johnny a reflection of himself, his lost hope, his attempts to once save his planet, and ultimately sacrifices himself for a new family, for a chance to fix what he couldn't fix before. And the ending with Sue can also be added here. Now about the post-credit scenes. There are two. The second one is just an Easter egg, fun, cute, but nothing important. The first one is interesting. Sue is sitting with Franklin, goes into another room, hears the sound of a teleport, returns and sees Franklin touching the face of none other than Doom, and he is not wearing a mask. However, we are not shown this. And perhaps he even heals him. And here are two possible developments, or rather theories. This is Doom from this universe. After the events with Galactus, he teleported to Sue and Reed to look at Franklin's abilities. Perhaps he wants to kidnap the boy for travels between multiverses, not just within one universe. Why does this theory have a right to exist, you ask me? At the beginning of the film, if you noticed, they showed a summit of world countries, and among the countries was Latvia, but its chair was empty. It's like a subtle hint, Doom exists, just in the shadows for now. And the second theory is Doom from the multiverse. He found the right Franklin with unique abilities and wants to use him to conquer other worlds. Franklin, as an innocent child, heals Doom and he pretends to be a peacemaker. But when Reed and Sue refuse to help, Doom reveals his true nature. And then, according to the script, either Reed and Sue chase Doom to get their son back, or they run from him, hiding Franklin. In any case, they end up on the MCU Earth. And in any case, on this Earth, he deceives everyone into thinking thinking he is supposedly good. And at the beginning, the Dark Avengers fight the Fantastic Four well because they are dressed like bad guys. Well, anyway, then they realize together that Doom is the main villain here. In general, I think Doomsday will revolve around Franklin and his powers. They didn't just keep hinting at his uniqueness for nothing. Let's get straight to the point. Is it worth going to see Fantastic Four? Here's my honest verdict. If you love retrofuturism, the 60s aesthetic of old science fiction comics, then you might really enjoy the film. It is beautifully shot with a sense of style, atmosphere, and surprisingly some soulfulness. It's not an action movie where every frame is for spectacle. It's a story about family, about choice, about sacrifice. Kind of like Fallout, but without the nuclear war and with Galactus. It's also a decent option for those who haven't completely burned out on Marvel, who still believe the studio is capable of creating something fresh, even with flaws. And of course, if you're interested in family dynamics in superhero stories, like in early Fantastic Four, or even a bit like The Incredibles, the film is at least worth a try. But if you want a clear plot without holes, with logic from start to finish, be prepared to suffer a little. If you are already morally tired of the Marvel conveyor and are waiting for something truly unique, alas, this is still Marvel, with all that entails. And what you definitely shouldn't expect is powerful action in the spirit of the Avengers. Here it's more of an intimate story, emotions, dialogues, internal dynamics, rather than a global brawl. Would I go a second time? Honestly, one viewing on the big screen is quite enough. There are spectacular scenes, especially the final battle and the visuals of Galactus, which really looked good in IMAX. But to rewatch, maybe just for company, to discuss the controversial moments with friends or before the next Marvel movies, where this might get a continuation.
Well, that's it. We covered all the important topics from visuals to the theory about Franken and Doctor Doom. We analyzed the plot, characters, motivations, pros, cons, post-credit scenes, and even looked into the future of Marvel. What can be said in the end? Fantastic Four, First Steps, is not a revolution, but it's not a failure either. It's a kind of bridge, the first attempt to reintroduce iconic characters into the Marvel Cinematic Universe and do it with heart. At times, the film falters in logic, pacing, and the antagonist's motivation, but in other moments it works. In visuals, in the family theme, in the actor's dedication, and of course, in its ambition.
If you're a Marvel fan, you will most likely enjoy it. If you are tired of superhero films, this movie might be a breath of fresh air, or it might pass you by, or maybe you should go to the factory. The is tired, are they? But in any case, this is the beginning of something new, and it at least tries to be sincere. So share your opinion, theory, rant, or praise in the comments. I read everything. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you're with us for the first time. With you, as always, was Max at the microphone. This is the Magic Geeks channel. And remember, even if the universe is collapsing, family will always help.
That's all from me.